Hi, my name is Robert Geller, and I am the track announcer at Woodbine Racetrack. And I have worked previously in the United States at Emerald Downs, at Sunland Park Racetrack and Casino. Prior to that, at the Royal Hong Kong Jockey Club in Hong Kong. And I got much of my experience from Australia, where I grew up. As the name suggests, track announcing is about announcing the races. So the real crux of the job is however many races there are a day, which can vary. It can be perhaps 8 to 12. The role that you have is to be the voice of the racetrack to describe the actual race as the action happens, the so-called play-by-play caller. So that ability to capture the correct order, the moves that are happening, the sentiment of the race, the excitement of the race is all part of the job. But a day of race calling is just part of what are the responsibilities. In addition to the actual race, there are requirements in terms of announcements. So announcements to do with post parades, where horses parade on the track, introducing the runners and jockeys and owners and trainers to the public, in terms of prices, in terms of the results of the race, in terms of stewards' inquiries, explaining what the stewards are imparting to you about any incidents during the running of a race, as well as perhaps what might be considered broadcast responsibilities. And they may be quite extensive or they may be minimal, depending on the track you work at. For example, at Woodbine, I stand in the booth and to camera introduce the race date to the public. I also often go on the television show and am a co-host or a guest to talk about potential horses that I've picked and analysis of the races. There are also times when there are a lot of events going on and you may be required to impart information about what the public's seeing. It might be a display of retired race horses. It might be something to do with certain individuals who've been in the racing industry, representatives who are presenting trophies. It may be a number of different types of announcements. All of those things come together in one day. The key to race calling is to be able to memorize. You have to be able to associate the jockey silks, the colors of those silks or the patterns of those silks with the name of a racehorse. And each time that you get to see a racehorse on the track, as well as the actual color of the racehorse, the look of that horse, the most important thing, though, for a race caller is those identifying silks. Before you go into a race, you have to be able to run through in your mind very quickly that mnemonic strategies where you try and associate that name. And you basically have to memorize every single horse before the race so that once they break, even though you can refer to your program, you're not reliant on it. And it's a reference, but you don't want to absolutely be looking there because in a race call, things happen in split seconds. In addition to that, you have to be able to present what is going on accurately. You have to be able to read a race. And there's a big difference between just ordering a race in the lead, in second, in third, in fourth. That's fine. A lot of the public can do that. What they might not be able to do is to actually get the feel of how a horse is traveling. And with experience, you get to learn the sense of how a horse might be traveling during a race, especially the jockey's position in the saddle. Lots of little signs that you look for. And you can certainly tell, even in the post-parade, how a horse might be behaving before a race. But I think a lot of the job requires, obviously, it's public speaking. It requires a sense of being able to present what you're seeing in a manner that's entertaining, comfortable on the ear, that is a voice that people can identify with. And you also need to put in your own personality. You have to trust that you can actually bring your own sense of race calling to the table. Yes, there are many ways of copying other announcers that give you a real stepping stone forward because we all learn from each other. But ultimately, you have to be able to develop your own individual style. I think a lot of it is too being able to multitask because in a split second, things change in horse racing. And while you're watching something there, you're thinking of something there. And that ability to hold the two at the same time is important because you don't have enough time to get out what you see happening. and yet you're still finishing the sentence of what's been going on while you're thinking of the next thing. And all of that skill has to happen in such a short way. So I'd say the other really important thing is concentration. And any lapses in concentration are really important to somehow get out of, because panic moments don't have to be a panic moment for the public. They may be internally, but sometimes just knowing how to salvage a difficult situation comes with potentially being in that situation and with experience. But all of those things, concentration, memorization, being able to sort of multitask, think on your feet, and be presentable in a way that the public can identify with, are the keys to a good race caller. There are a number of different challenges depending on the type of personality you are, but I think big race days do bring with it a great deal of pressure, because sometimes you feel that there aren't too many people at the track who are really listening, because you're often in the booth self-contained and you don't really get a sense that there's a big crowd out there, even when there is. But on big days you do, and you suddenly think, my goodness, people are really listening. And there might be a sense of pressure because that race that you're going to call is going to definitely be recorded in history for a long time, and it may be very important to the historians. And you sometimes feel like, well, do I need to do more than is necessary, or do I need to just bring my own internal level of comfort back so that I just call the race as is normal? And it's usually a little bit of both, because big races demand some degree of adrenaline that may be a little bit higher than on a normal race day. But I feel the pressure of handling being in the public eye, being on the spot for a big race, is definitely quite strong. And over the years, I've found that, oddly enough, the more big races you call, the more you get to trust that those big races are not the make and break of you, and then you start to enjoy them more. I think the other challenge is, as far as race calling is concerned, people say, well, you're only as good as your last race. And it's a bit like an actor, only as good as your last film. It is a very public, scrutinized world, especially with social media. And you are, in many ways, able to get a lot of support, at the same time, a lot of criticism. And being able to navigate through any of that type of turbulent opinion of what's out there and not be scarred by it or not be intimidated by it is also important. I think learning about other parts of the industry is most important to developing a greater appreciation of what is behind a race. And that backstory gives you a lot more depth in your race calls. So sometimes the challenge is stretching yourself into areas where you might not have been as versed or as comfortable, and it adds a lot more dimension to who you are and to what you bring to the table. But all the challenges are very personal and depending on the type of environment you're in. But most often, the most important is staying fresh and not allowing the last race that might have had some hiccups to determine the next one, because fatigue is not going to be something that you will ever eradicate. You just have to live with. Pressure's not going away. You have to work with, and people's opinions will always be there. You have to accept it. So there's a lot of internal work that comes with it. Well, I suppose I should say that passion is possibly the ingredient I might have left out earlier, because really that is what drove me into it. And from a young age, because I find a lot of people in the industry, whether it's track announcing or if it's in any form of work, be it the race office, the backstretch, really have a passion for it from a young age. And I don't think that it's something that you can really necessarily just pick up later. I think it's fueled by those early years. And for me, it was. I went to the track as a young kid. I really was quite obsessed with memorizing race names, creating fantasy races for myself with horse names that I liked, being quite taken by the spectacle itself, the adrenaline of a finish. I really loved having what I called a mock racetrack in my bedroom as a kid. So I think it was in my play. It became obviously more than play when I started to seriously think, well, could this be something I could do as a career? And took myself out to get experience. But I do think it's definitely fueled by that passion. I also felt I had a little bit of that maybe extroverted entertainment aspect to my personality that was suited to it. And I know that my background from my family had a little bit of, might call acting in it. You know, my uncle was an actor for a living. So it wasn't something that it was adverse against, sort of something I didn't expect from my own background. So I felt it was very natural. I also love the fact that every race is a new day. Every single race is like a new story, and every single horse is another to discover. So the excitement that you might say, well, you know, do you grow out of it? It changes, of course, as you become an adult. But the essence is that it's still play, it's still fun, and you see it in the fans. That's why they're there. They want that outlet. They want that expression of excitement, of the unknown that keeps everyone on their toes. And that's what makes me excited about going to work every day. Well, I think if it's particularly to do with track announcing, the only way of really experiencing how to be a track announcer is to be announcing. So taking opportunity wherever it presents, and I did that myself, and I recommend it again to anyone who wants to be an announcer. You can even begin on the TV by looking at replays, or on social media at watching video replays and practicing the process yourself. And everyone's process is different. Some people color their programs, some people don't, I don't. But what is important is if you are going to be a track announcer, you have to have the right verbiage. It's not like a sport where you can transfer. It's very specific, and you have to be able to talk to the highest level of professionals in the game who will know immediately if that doesn't quite fit with what you're saying, because certain terminology is very specific. It certainly helps that if you've grown up with it and you have a passion for it, it's second nature to you. But if you are new to it and haven't learned that, that's absolutely essential in order to become authentic and trusted. I suppose the other part is opportunity comes with being in some ways exposed to other parts of the industry, and you just never know where opportunity may lie. But I found that racetrack people are very open to discussing opportunities with you. And I know that I've done a number of things myself that were adjuncts, such as I was a bookmaker's clerk, I did a radio course, I've done some study in what at the time in Australia was sort of the Riverina College, to do with breeding, to do with learning about horses. They weren't going to be my specialty area. Right? Race calling was always what I wanted to do, but to build an umbrella of an understanding of the industry is always such a great asset, and it can open other doors for you. But also never forget too that, you know, everyone's path is individual and unique. That was my way, but you trust your way. And I really believe if you follow your heart and trust those little intuitive nudges along the way of where opportunity seems to be speaking to you, that is so important to trust and to follow. For me, I really love the craft. It really makes my day when I feel like I can walk away from a race and believe that I could sense, even if the horse was way back in the pack, that that horse was going to win a long way out, or that horse was going to be a factor. One of my most satisfying things as the craft is concerned is to be able to sense where the real power of a field is. And not everyone is as dedicated to that as I am, but that's one of the joys I get. I really feel great satisfaction when a big race has gone well. On the flip side, of course, you can be hard on yourself. But I think the interesting part of track announcing, and this is the part that I find I personally enjoy, is the level of trust that comes over years of not having to script anything. I've never scripted anything. Even though things drop into your head and you think, oh, next time I could say this, next time I could say that. I think what you'll find is, like any job, you start to just get a sense of to trust your own intuition. And sometimes that trust of being able to get out of your own way and allow the race to take you to where it needs to be is like gold. I suppose that the most important thing in terms of that question is also that you get to do what you love. And I do love it. And if I didn't love it, I wouldn't be doing it. And so the joy that you get from your job by being in a spot where you feel like, my gosh, I'm just a fan like everyone else, but I have this responsibility to bring to the fan what I experience and feel just like that person next to me. but in my way, is such a fantastic opportunity. And I do really realize it's a responsibility, but I know it's a responsibility that people want you to have fun with and they want you to enjoy. And so it's like a golden ticket to being a very happy worker. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope that what I've imparted today inspires you to be a part of this fantastic racing community. It is like a family. I think you'll find that there's so much passion. I know that everyone's got a different slant on what really makes that racing industry come alive for them. Trust your gut, love what you do, and be a part of it. It's an industry that's absolutely founded on, I would say, people who love to be at the racetrack. And if you love to be at the racetrack, there's no better job.